Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about the election of 1824 and the unbelievable results that came about as a result of this election. So, as you already studied and plugged in the information on your candidates charts, there were four candidates running for the presidency: Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, William Crawford, and Henry Clay. And although nobody really ran away with this race, Andrew Jackson was in the lead of both the popular votes and the Electoral College votes as well. And as you can see here on the screen, Andrew Jackson secured 153,544 popular votes, which was about 44% of the overall popular vote. And in the Electoral College, he had 99 of the 261 electoral votes, which gave him 38% of the Electoral College votes. Then you can break it down from there. Second place in both the popular and the Electoral College votes was John Quincy Adams. And then you kind of have a little bit of flip-flopping between William Crawford and Henry Clay. Crawford slightly behind in the popular vote, whereas Crawford slightly ahead in the Electoral College votes for this presidency here. So at the end of the day, Andrew Jackson leads in both categories. And as you go down, you can take a look at how this is reflected on the pie chart. That's for the popular vote, and then you could go here and check it out on the Electoral College vote as well. You should have these in front of you. So there's a couple key questions to think about here. Which candidate received the most popular and electoral votes? Well, that was clearly Andrew Jackson. So what was the problem? Why wasn't he elected as president in 1824? And then how did John Quincy Adams end up becoming the president in 1824? Well, it all comes down to what the Constitution says as far as electing a president of the United States. For the president to be selected, or for a candidate to be selected as a president, they need to secure a majority of the votes in the Electoral College. Now, you spent some time the other day digging into the Electoral College system, and it is a very complicated system. It's one that a lot of people would like to see just be stricken down and moved to a straight popular vote, but it is what it is, and it's been that way since the beginning of our nation. We had an election in 1800 with Thomas Jefferson where no candidate had the majority of the electoral votes coming out of the Electoral College, and so the House of Representatives decided that one with a measure of controversy. And here you are, less than a quarter century later, in 1824, and we have our second election that will be removed from the hands of the voters and the electorates that are put in there for the Electoral College, and it's going to be decided by the House of Representatives. Why? Because no candidate had a majority of the votes in the Electoral College. So when it ends up in the House of Representatives to be selected, it doesn't work out very favorably for Andrew Jackson. You see, Andrew Jackson was looked at as a complete outsider. He was a bit of a ruffian, would tend to get into a lot of fights. He had been in duels multiple times in his life. He was a battle-tested soldier. We know of his successes in the War of 1812, particularly the battle at New Orleans. But he wasn't that refined type of leader that you would find in a military leader like George Washington. He was a good old boy, I guess is the best way you could describe it. Frontiersman, looked at as a bit of a renegade, kind of hard-headed compared to what the establishment was used to. Most of Congress came from wealth. They came from a very highly educated background. Their expectation was that a president would reflect that background as well. And Andrew Jackson just was not that. He was too far away from what their norm was, and as a result, they moved to the individual that they saw as a very, very safe bet, and that was John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was the son of John Adams, the second president of the United States. His family was part of the founding fathers that established the United States of America from the very beginning. And he had a pretty solid pedigree too. He'd been raised around the presidency with his father, so he had spent a lot of time overseas, watching his father involved with diplomacy, and brought an amazing pedigree as well, as did the other two candidates too. At the end of the day, the House of Representatives would go with John Quincy Adams, and Andrew Jackson would not win this election. Now, interestingly, Clay drops out, throws his support to John Adams, and ends up being appointed a cabinet position. And that's going to further complicate this. Jackson claimed it to be a corrupt bargain. He was obviously furious over it and would not have a chance to become president until 1828 as a result.